And we're live to the world. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and wherever you are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world that we live in, apart from that little thing called COVID. But, that's part and parcel of it. My name's Jason Cooper. I'm a sales trainer, sales coach, but I help deliver better results. This episode is the Global Sales Leader Podcast, and I'm always very excited when I have a new guest because it makes such a difference. So this series is all about insightful leaders, people that have played a slight difference in their lives and actually produced wonderful and amazing results and employ brilliant strategies to best effect. And I think we were just chatting a few moments before, but about some of the things, and I have to pronounce your name, Rishon, is it? Blumberg?
That's
Did
right.
I get it right?
You got it right.
Bang on. I'm delighted. I had a friend of mine on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I just couldn't get his surname right. He's part Greek, and his surname is, I don't know, there's so many letters in it, and it's really challenging. So welcome. So
thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Shall I give a little bit, a bit of blurb about you? Rishon is the first and foremost an entrepreneur, as I think we all are when we're self-employed and we work for ourselves, and graduated from the Walton Business School, degree of entrepreneurial management in 1994. I think you might be showing your age there. I think you're a year older than me, so I'm a young guy here. So you've got Grammy Award nominations. Look, I think we're just take it here because you suggested before we went on it was with the artist, but you're a part and parcel of that, so I would
fair enough.
Absolutely. 10 million records, albums sold, including consulting business touching every single angle of the arts, Emmy award winning, chart topping songwriters, producers, directors, and company. 10x got that right this time. Rishon, decades of experience managing creative and technology spheres, carving out place for premier resources. There's lots and lots of. You write for Harvard Business Review. You've done a lot of TEDx talks. You live in New York. You've done stuff for the BBC, the New Yorker. Look, there's lots and lots of stuff that you've given, but tell me some incremental points along your journey which stood out to you that made a difference in your life.
Yeah. First of all, growing up in New York, I think was the first major difference between myself and a lot of other people in the business world today. Just being in that environment was unique, and it exposed me at a very young age to people whose parents were in the music business. And that's really what led myself and my partner, Michael Solomon, down that road, was exposure to people so we could see the business behind the music. Most people, everybody loves music. Like, who doesn't love music? Cool. But there aren't that many people that really get into music or love music because they see the business behind it. That was really the love for us. It was, yes, we loved the music itself, but it was how it touched the world and the elements behind the scenes that allowed for that to happen. In particular, we were exposed to Bruce Springsteen's manager, co-manager at a very young age. And without knowing it, that was the first 10Xer that we met. Bruce Springsteen is certainly a 10Xer, and his managers are as well. So that was really, very pivotal. And I think at a very early age, without knowing it, sort of charted the course for how we would get into business in the world. And then going to Wharton and being around the people there at the University of Pennsylvania was incredibly helpful. Growing up in the city, I was sort of in a specific type of enclave, and getting exposure to people from all over the country and all over the world, I think really helped me as well. It made me realize that America is just one part of a much bigger global system. And that really informed the way that we worked with the artists that we manage, because the rest of the world outside of the United States is equally as important, if not more important. So that was a huge focus for us. And then realizing with the creation of, so the entertainment company that we have is called Brick Wall Management. With the advent of 10X management around 2011, 2012, what we realized is that the skill sets that we had developed in working with talent on the entertainment side really could be ported to other verticals. That talent of all different types, as long as there is the right kind of supply and demand curve with talent, they all can benefit from, representation and guidance. Mm-hmm. And the book that we wrote, Game Changer: How to Be 10x in the Talent Economy, is really about the lessons that we learned of what it means to represent exponentially better talent and what companies need to do to really prepare themselves for needing that kind of talent, because that's where the world is headed if we're not there already.
I'm fascinated by that. I pictures going through my head. I don't know if you've seen that TV show called Vinyl that was out on Netflix a few years. Mm-hmm. That's what was going through my head. I know that was set in the 70s, but it's still the same, probably a little bit more up to date than that. So based on the stuff that you've learned, you must have been really good at influencing and persuading artists, because that's a key skill to have as an entrepreneur. And now you're taking it into the full-on business sale. So how do you do that, and how have you applied that in your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that connects all of that and entrepreneurship in general, because whether it's working with artists or creating a product and bringing it into the market, or putting together some sort of service offering, all of that is predicated on being able to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? So it's one thing to say, oh, I can do this, that, and the other thing, but you have to deliver on that. So people who build trust and maintain trust are people who are going to succeed in the world. If you can't deliver on the things that you say you're going to do, and if you can't set expectations properly, you're never going to meet or exceed those expectations, and you're going to leave people on the other side feeling shortchanged. So I think that really is how we made our way. We started in the entertainment business, excuse me, at a very young age. We started Brickwall Management when myself and my partner were 25 and only a few years out of college. And really looking back, it was absurd that we did that. But I think the reason we've been able to succeed through the years is that we've delivered on the things that we said that we were going to deliver on. We don't overpromise. We don't say we're going to do things we can't do. We don't blow smoke at you, and we really deliver on the things that we say we're going to deliver on. And that's the key, I think, for how we've been able to succeed.
I think that's absolutely wonderful, because this is the Global Sales Leader podcast. And I believe that everyone is a salesperson, regardless of what industry and vertical you're in. But I can truly see that you are a salesperson, regardless of what different hats that you might have on in the music industry and what you're doing now. Exactly what you've just said is the key attributes of a phenomenal salesperson.
Yeah.
So building trust, building respect, and delivering on what you're going to say is exactly the characteristics what I would expect of a phenomenal person like yourself. So who actually influenced you along the way to actually do what you did?
I think that there's a mix of nurture and nature. I definitely think I got a lot of good genes. And, one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is that capability is evenly distributed through all cultures and creeds and global locations. Opportunity is not distributed equally. And I think I had the fortune of being in the right place at the right time. And I define luck as the cross section of opportunity and preparedness. So I think that, it was a little bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time, having the right disposition, knowing the right kinds of people. We talk about in the book a lot, not specifically using the word mentorship, but this idea of having somebody in your life who's got skin in the game, who wants to see you succeed, and nurturing those kinds of relationships. So throughout the years, there have been many different people that have played that role in my life. And I sort of soak up that information wherever I can get it. I'm 52 now, so I'm sort of the mentor. But I still look to other people. We have a strategic consultant that we work with at 10X Management who plays a vital role in helping us focus on the right elements strategically for our business. And we trickle that down. So, to me, the idea of leadership, it starts at the very top, but it's about empowering those around you. So for every person that's given me a piece of good advice or guidance or support, I try to pay that forward. And I think that's so crucial.
I think that's really good, because you have to serve others. And what I like, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are, whether you're at the top of your game, I think you still need support, because once you're at the top, who can you speak to? I know there is people around you, and when you're an entrepreneur, you have people that are working with you, their employees or whatever, and it's good to collaborate and find out the best ideas and the best strategies. Yeah. But sometimes you need someone else to speak to give you another form of guidance that actually are not in your bubble. So what do you do? What do you think are the key characteristics of a successful leader or successful entrepreneur like yourself? What are the character traits?
Well, I think to be a successful entrepreneur, this is slightly different than being a leader, but to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to have grit. You have to be able to stick with it. I think so many people give up when they're faced with their first challenge. It doesn't mean that you should have grit to the point where you're staying with something that isn't working. You have to be flexible and pivot and take information and feedback. Feedback, I think, is crucial. That gets me more into leadership. I think leadership requires the ability to take and synthesize a massive amount of feedback and be open to getting that feedback. You can't lead if you don't understand things about the people that you're trying to lead. So I think that to be a manager and to be an effective leader, you have to truly understand who the people are that are working for you and working with you, and be open to the feedback from them. People that sort of shut off and dictate. I feel like dictating at companies is the old way of work. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Office Space from the 1990s, but it was a wonderful comedy. And, it just talks about manager going around asking for TP reports that have to be on his desk by Monday and disregarding any of the personal needs of the people he's talking to. And he wants his employees to come in on the weekend, and he doesn't care that they have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's just a perfect encapsulation of what work used to be and what it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So I think that for entrepreneurs, it's grit and fortitude. And for leaders, it's feedback and flexibility.
I think grit is, as Carol, I think it's Carol Dweck, wasn't it, that wrote the book Grit. And she did an assessment in there of showing what grit actually means. She broke it really down into a really good logical thing. But I think a lot of it is grit, but it is resilience, and it is bouncing back through turbulence. And like we've both been through the 2008, 2009 financial crisis and the dot-com boom and bust. So what were the learnings along the way for yourself when we had those, or didn't you see them in your industry?
Well, we didn't see them that much in entertainment. And since we've been working in technology, it's only been boom. I mean, I don't know that there will be a bust in technology anytime. There may be different kinds of bubbles, like we're seeing perhaps with NFTs and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But we did see massive change in the entertainment world and music. It started with music, where Napster sort of disrupted the way that you delivered music to people. And that was a real wake-up call for the entertainment industry. And then you saw it in film, you saw it in books with ebooks. And it really showed us that industries can bounce back. It took a long time for the music business to sort of right the ship. I would say it was about 14 or 15 years before streaming came, and streaming has really saved the music business, and it's bigger than it ever has been. And that change in the music industry is what led us to create 10X Management, not because we felt desperate that our business was in peril, but it was more the realization that there are so many other skill sets and verticals where the things that we have learned in representing talent could play out. We started to hear about chefs having agents because they're like celebrities. And people, they have been for a while, and people started to talk about tech talent as rock stars. And it made us think like maybe there's a whole different world of talent out there that can benefit from the same kind of representation. So it wasn't so much the burst and bubble of the dot-com era or the financial crisis of 2007, 8, 9, all of which we felt. It was really about the changing of the guard between pre-technology and post-technology. I gave a TEDx talk back in 2015, which it felt like yesterday, but it's really a long time ago. And I pointed out that Domino's considers itself a tech company because at the time, 50% of all their sales were through its app and website. That number is now 75%, right? So way back in the day, there used to be a split between, this is a tech company, like Intel is a tech company. Every company is a tech company now. And I think that was really the change that was the impetus for us pivoting our business so that we have now the entertainment company and the tech company. And I think that is really the huge change that most companies are going through right now. And COVID just enhanced that.
It has, yeah, absolutely. Made it slightly different. I think everything's accelerated about 5 years. And especially now, there's a blended approach to everything that we do. There's a blended approach. Do you need to go to the office? And I think how people are actually going to be working when it's fully open is you can go to the office or not. I know Facebook in Dublin, they've got a massive office here and they just built a brand new place. They're telling their staff that they can either work from home or go to the office. It's totally down to them. I'm actually interested in a little bit about the golden gems. I haven't read your book yet. I do apologize. I will have a look at it
no worries.
at some stage. I've got a stack of books I need to go through. But tell me some of the golden gems in there. So for the audience, what are the golden gems to feed forward? Because I always like to have golden nuggets that people can actually take away and go, I'd love to apply this in my life.
Yeah. So the book is really split into two distinctive halves. The first half of the book focuses on the things that companies should be doing to attract, hire, manage, and retain top talent who we call 10Xers. The second half of the book is geared towards the individual and what they can do in their life practically to help push them down the 10X spectrum to be a better performer. And I would say the takeaways for both are somewhat similar. It has to do with, for the companies, understanding who the individual is that you're hiring. We live in a bespoke world now. You've got Spotify, which has playlists. You've got customization in medicine. You've got streaming services for the TV and movies. People have this on-demand, customized mentality now. The one thing that is still entrenched in the old world is sort of the hiring and the procurement process. And so a lot of what we talk about is what companies need to do in order to be able to attract this kind of talent, because let's face it, as companies can do more and more with fewer resources because of technology, those people that they hire have to be exponentially better. They have to be able to be flexible and deliver on multiple levels. So, and that starts with the hiring process. So we talk about what needs to be done during the hiring process, what things you need to uncover to be able to make the kinds of competitive offers that are going to lure somebody in. And then once you've brought somebody into the company, what the culture needs to be.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because while I'm thinking of it, I'd love to, because every now and again I run interview courses and training and stuff like that. But I'm intrigued. How do you spot a high performer? What are the characteristics along the way that you can see? Because you got the CV process that is screened. There's got computers like checking the keywords and all of that sort of stuff. But once the person is in front of you, I know you got this STAR behavioral based questioning techniques, but outside of that, what else is there that you can see in a high performer?
Well, so at the outset, I think it is pretty difficult to determine somebody who is exponentially better than somebody else. Yes, you can look at their pedigree, maybe where they went to university, where they've worked before, how they conducted themselves in the interview process. It's really once they're, in the company and they're being managed, that those things come to light. And the key attributes. So for us, a 10Xer is somebody who has a very high IQ, right? They're super intelligent, but even more important than the IQ is the EQ. How do they deal with other humans? How do they have empathy and understand the plight of somebody else? Do they own up to their own mistakes? Do they take responsibility for it? Are they continual learners? How do they communicate? Are they helping and communicating, getting feedback from people below them, adjacent to them, and above them, right? So the attributes of somebody who's a high performer are people that work really effectively, not just in what they do themselves, but in the success of the team around them. And we all have people like this in our lives. And when we see it, we know it, right? There was I think a Supreme Court justice in the 1950s or 60s who said, "I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it." It's a bit similar with a 10Xer. It's hard to define exactly what makes a 10Xer, but when you see that person, you pretty quickly understand who they are. And the key there is to really support those people. One of the things we talk about is the sabotage instinct and impulse. People make bad decisions. It's okay to make a bad decision if you're able to course correct, get the feedback, and improve yourself. But there are people who make the wrong decision over and over and over again. Yeah. Those are the kinds of people that you have to weed out very quickly from your organization because they're toxic. So on the one hand, you want to support and spot those people that are the 10Xers and higher performers, and you have to weed out those people that have the sabotage impulse and get them out of your organization as soon as possible.
I always think that the brain takes over, the rational part of the brain, when you should be really trusting that initial gut feel, because there's a direct correlation between the stomach, because there's and the brain. And the gut feel is that first instant reaction that you get, and you go, when you should go, I trust my gut on that, and then the brain overtakes, and all of a sudden it's gone in another direction. I think sometimes that's where a lot of bad decisions are made. I know you've got to go into the rational part of our brains to really understand the person that you're seeing. So I'm fascinated with that area because I learn a lot as well in that area. I've cut you up a little bit. Could you describe a little bit more about one or two of the other little gems that you have working in that can feed forward to the audience here?
Yeah, so in the first half of the book where we talk about what companies need to do, the responsibility of managers and leaders is so much more important today than it has ever been before, because the culture of an organization starts at the top. If the leader of an organization is open and communicative and stresses openness in the organization, managers will fall in line and they too will be open and communicative. And so if you don't have the right kind of culture, it doesn't matter how good you are as a manager, you're going to lose, star employees because the culture is not right. Yeah. And a good manager is good when they understand who they're managing and understand what it is that motivates them. I love this quote from Steve Jobs where he said, "We don't hire the best and brightest to tell them what to do. We hire the best and brightest so they can tell us what to do." And the role of management is really to provide their best and brightest with the tools they need to succeed and then get out of their way, right? Micromanagement is terrible. So that's sort of some of the keys from the first half of the book. The second half of the book focuses a lot on the concept of mentorship, which I mentioned before. It's understanding, we talk about something called the third party effect, which is, we've seen it a million times. If somebody speaks highly of you, it says so much more about you than if you speak highly for yourself. Not that you shouldn't represent yourself well and advocate for yourself, but you need to find champions in your life and motivate them to help you, right? You need to find that champion that can go to their boss and say, "Hey, this person's awesome. Like, we need to find a bigger role for them, promote them." If you can't find those people that have a vested interest in seeing you succeed, you're not going to benefit from the third party effect. Yeah. We talk about skin in the game. That is finding that person in your life who really cares about your success. They have a vested interest in seeing you succeed, right? That's where you get the benefit of the third party effect. So if you can't find somebody who has skin in the game in your life, you're never going to benefit from the third party effect. And then constantly learning. You have to be constantly learning and upskilling. And this is also, this is professional, but I'm talking about personally as well. If you can't be more enlightened as a human being, and be able to understand and empathize with somebody else's situation, you're never going to be that kind of a high performer. No man or woman is an island unto themselves. We all work in some form of a team. Even if you're a solopreneur, there are other people that you have to work with and interface with that have to believe in you and support you. So you have to support them and provide that feedback for them. The same feedback that you want to get from them, you have to provide to them. So those are a couple of the gems on both sides of the book.
Love it. And that makes complete and utter sense. And as an entrepreneur like yourself, and even myself, I read constantly. I set an agenda in the morning to take an hour out of my day to learn. I've even got an app that helps me with my memory, because we're not getting any younger. So we have to keep stimulating ourselves with learning something new and something interesting. But I also think it's all about experience as well. Experiences change the way we do things. Now, I was actually thinking about, you're right in terms of something that I practice, or is get other people to talk how well you are, as opposed to you boasting about how great and wonderful you are. In your head, you're the champion in your head. But I was thinking about how effective can people communicate in this isolated world that we're in? Because entrepreneurs and leaders have had a little bit of challenging situations over the last 18 months, as we know. But what's makes people communicate even more effectively, that people just draw around them? I mean, meaning they're in there to support their leaders in high stakes, but also in states of vulnerability when things are not going so right. There's a lot of questions in there. I'm going to throw one.
I have one word catchphrase that I've been using to surround the remote work. We've been doing remote work for a long time, and the clients that we represent at 10X, 90% of them have been working remotely.
Okay.
But what we've realized during the pandemic is intentionality. That's the key word. Leaders have to be much more intentional about how they communicate and what types of communication they need to do with their teams. I'll speak to what we've done in our own office. Because we're not together all the time and we can't just have casual conversations, we've set up multiple touch points during the week. Some of them are professional touch points and some of them are personal touch points. So we start the week with a 30-minute Zoom call that is strictly about how you doing? How was your weekend? What are you doing personally? There's no agenda around work. Occasionally there's work discussed in those calls, but it's really about just connecting with people and finding out how their weekend was, what they're up to, what they're doing. It's sort of that
coffee break, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the water cooler moment. It's the coffee break where you're just chit-chatting. And if you're not intentional about creating those moments, they're lost and you lose that connection, right? So that's one thing we've done. We've added, and this is maybe a little bit new agey, and I don't really participate in this, but we've added 2 different meditation sessions that our employees can attend and meditate together. Plus and this predates the pandemic, we have a goals call every single week. And that goals call is broken down into 3 personal goals and 6 to 8 professional goals each week. And so on that call, we talk about wins and learns from the week. And then we each go through and talk about our personal and professional goals, where we were from our goals the prior week, where we are from the goals the current week. So we really have been, again, intentional about trying to come together so that the communication still happens. There's opportunities for everybody to express different things. There's opportunities for people to understand what other people are working on. My partner actually is doing one-on-ones with each of our employees. Now, we benefit from only having 10 employees. It's much more difficult with a much larger company, but you can break that down into smaller units, right? A manager can do one-on-ones with their 15 people that work on their team. So intentionality, I think, is really what helps to lubricate communication and keep that relationship alive, even when we're remote. But I do, you mentioned this earlier, the blended workforce. I do think that that's going to be around for the next few years as people transition out of this 18-month pandemic. Hopefully we transitioned out of that pretty soon. The US is in New York, I can say we're pretty open right now. We could all be in the office. I've been going to the office a couple days a week, and we're encouraging people to come in as they wish. But for the next little bit, there's going to be this blend of people in office, out of office, and that intentionality is going to have to remain. You must be intentional about communication. It can't happen organically the way it used to happen. I
think so. I think everything is, we're not going back to 2019. Everything's going forward now. And I think the good thing is, I don't know how the big businesses are going to cope, but it's just going to be more of a casual approach. It'd be nice to go into the office actually to see people, because we are social creatures at the end of the day. We do like each other. Hopefully we do like each other. And we do need to see each other. But it is that stress and that anxiety with that hour's journey, that hour and a half journey that we have to take from A to B and whatever else. So I know we work harder, but I think there's a balance there. At least we see our children. And I think the learning that we've got out of it is our mindsets and, the flexibility. Like, life isn't always about work. It's also about having that balance in life. If you were interviewing you, what sort of questions would you ask you?
That's a good question. You've certainly touched on some good questions. I might ask if there's a particular story from the book that we have a lot of interviews there. If there's a particular story that your audience might like. So if that's a question you want me to answer, I'm happy to answer that, because there are at least a dozen plus interviews in the book, and across multiple verticals. We have people in music and entertainment. We have people in various verticals between healthcare and banking. But the one story that I don't know that we've got the exclusive on it, but I don't think it's been talked about a lot. Bruce Springsteen's manager, John Landau, who we interview in the book, talked to us about what he thinks led to him managing Bruce. And he told us a story about a winter in, I think, the early to mid 70s, when Bruce had called him. Bruce was living in New Jersey. John was living in New York City. It was the middle of a huge snowstorm, a blizzard. And Bruce called him in the evening, maybe around 6-7 o'clock, and said, "Hey, John, I'd love, why don't you come over to my place? Let's listen to some records, hang out, talk a little bit, just get to know each other a little bit more." And John said, "Bruce, there's a blizzard outside. I don't even know if I could get there." And Bruce was like, "Come on, you can do it." And John, took that moment and said, "I'm going to do what I can to get there. I have no idea what this relationship is going to be." At the moment, there was no contemplation of John managing Bruce, but he felt this moment of, if I let this moment pass, it'll be a mistake. And it took him, he said, about 6 hours. He got to Bruce's either 11 or 12 o'clock at night. They spent the entire night together. And ultimately he ended up getting home, and he attributes that extra effort that he put in, that authentic moment of putting himself out there, as the key to having built that relationship to the point where Bruce asked him to manage him. And I think that story is so crucial in building authentic trust with anybody you're working with. It's showing them that you're willing to go that extra mile, even when there isn't necessarily something in it for you at that moment. That can make a huge difference between somebody being your lifelong advocate and somebody just thinking that guy's a cool guy, what a decent guy, to being like, that person is truly special and I need to go out of my way to make a difference for that person. So for me, that was one of the coolest stories that came out of the book. So that would be one question I would ask me.
Awesome. I love it. There's a good metaphor in there, and there's lots of key takeaways in there, because I always think it's trust, respect. The way I live my life is I trust, respect, and build an effective relationship. So look, this has been absolutely awesome. Was there anything that I didn't discover that no one knows about you that you'd like to share with the audience?
I mean, a few people know this about me, but I'm a very avid Scrabble player. I have about 50 Scrabble games going online at any one time. And, you know, you were talking about the app you have for mental acuity. That's my app for mental acuity. It's playing Scrabble.
That's absolutely awesome. Look, I really appreciate your time today. How can people find out a lot more about you and what you do?
So we have a website for the book called GameChangerTheBook.com. And not only does it have my contact information and a bunch of other information, but it also has a fun quiz that you can take as an individual to see how 10x you are, or you could take on behalf of your company to see how 10x they are. So 10x, GameChangerTheBook.com is where you can get my contact information and learn more about the book and my companies.
Awesome. That's absolutely fascinating. I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. There's so much more I could ask, but we've only had limited time on this earth to impact other people. So thank you so much again.
My pleasure.
You've listened to the Global Sales Leader podcast. Every episode is different. Every episode gives and nurtures some special moments and golden nuggets of wonderful knowledge, wonderful information that we can all share. We can all grow. This is my MBA. This is how I learn. This is how I help myself to help other people. So I thank you so much for today. Thank you so much.